The more Jack is afraid of Jill, the more frightened is Jack that Jill will think that Jack is afraid. The more Jill is afraid of Jack, the more frightened is Jill that Jack will think that Jill is afraid. The more afraid Jack is of Jill, the more frightened Jack is not to be frightened of Jill. Because it is very dangerous not to be afraid when faced with one so dangerous. Jack is frightened because Jill is dangerous. Jill appears dangerous because Jack is frightened. The more afraid Jill is of Jack, the more frightened Jill is not to be frightened of Jack. The more Jack is frightened not to be frightened, the more frightened he is to appear frightened. The more frightened Jill is not to be frightened, the more frightened Jill is to appear to be frightened. The more frightened each is, the less frightened each appears to be. Jack is frightened not to be frightened at Jill, and to appear to be frightened at Jill, and that Jill will be not frightened at Jack. Jill is frightened not to be frightened at Jack, and to appear to be frightened at Jack, and that Jack be not frightened at Jill. Jack, therefore, tries to frighten Jill by appearing not to be frightened, that she appears not to be frightened. And Jill tries to frighten Jack by appearing not to be frightened, that he appears not to be frightened.